So, I will be discussing how to do the review of related literature. So, I think we need to define first what is literature review. The literature review is defined as a systematic process that involves identifying, evaluating, and synthesizing the existing literature from prior research within a specific field of study. So it means to say that, for instance, you wanted to study about families with children suffering from autism. So that's your field of study, and then you have to identify what topic or what keywords will be Googled in so that you can look for articles that are relevant to your study. So you have to be specific with your study. And then after that, you have to read these articles so that you may be able to evaluate the content of these articles and be able to determine whether these articles, for instance, about children with autism, is similar or maybe relevant to your study. For instance, you just wanted to know the parenting stress in those types of families. So if that is your focus, you will not be including in your study, for instance, the medical study of autism, but more of focusing on the family dynamics or the impact of having an autistic child or children to a particular family. And then after that, you have to synthesize the existing literature, meaning to say, the easiest way to do it is to come up with a matrix. For instance, you read article number one, and then you have to get the conclusion or you have to read the discussion part of that article so that the other articles you will also do something like that. And then after looking at all the articles that you've read, you have to synthesize, meaning to say what are the common things that these articles are stating or concluding about the topic. And then, so here it states that although a literature review should be comprehensive, meaning to say comprehensive, it should, as much as possible, include all the existing journals, maybe, or articles that are relevant to your topic. However, it is always limited to a selected and specified field of research. For instance, you wanted to study about AI or the advantages or disadvantages of AI, so you will only be looking at articles that are similarly looking at the same thing. For instance, you wanted to study gender inequality, so you have to key in the word gender inequality so that the internet will give you the relevant articles on gender inequality. So if the topic, for instance, is about gender and development, so I think it will not be included in your review. For instance, you wanted to study international conflicts, so you have to look at war between two countries because that would be actually that would be the limitation of your review. Or you wanted to study networks among organization, so your keywords are network and then organization, so you will be excluding topics that are about network only or about organizations only. And then it states here that comprehensiveness, it means that the review should be based on all the available literature that is relevant for this specific field. I am doing a dissertation on the mother-child relationship in an OFW family. So because I have so many things to look into, like child behavior, marital relations quality, their definition of what a good mother is, their mothering practices, and then well-being, all in all, my references is actually about 40 pages because as much as possible, the minimum requirement, for instance, you wanted to study about marriage or marital dissolution, the minimum number of journals or articles for that specific topic is three. So you have to quote three authors speaking about the topic. So in doing that, these authors may be unanimously looking at marital dissolution, or they may have opposing views about it. So you have to present all those things. And then what is mentioned here is also a literature review should include literature from previous research within the specified field. However, some examiners or maybe editors of journals whom you wanted whom you want to actually submit your articles for publication, they're actually demanding that the article should be no not older than 10 years. However, there are actually articles that are classics. So, for instance, the article is 1960. However, what is being discussed in that article is relevant in your topic. You can include that. But as much as possible, for instance, you're doing a study right now, so make sure that your articles are maybe 2015 to 2023. So another caveat here is that uh, a good literature review should only include high quality original work by scholars and researchers. Meaning to say, you are discouraged to rely on Wikipedia or maybe ResearchGate or any other similar websites that discuss various topics but are not that reliable. What do we mean by reliable literature? So this could be peer-reviewed books or maybe journal articles, um, because these journal articles and peer-reviewed books underwent scrutiny and review. So the findings of the study are quite reliable. So you might be asking, what are the purposes of literature review? So we have three here. Number one, to develop research questions for a new study. So why is that so? Because, the ideal thing or practice to do is that you review first the literature on the topic you want to study, and then after synthesizing all the findings, you have to look at the research gap, and the research gap should be your basis in developing your research questions. Why? Because that would be your contribution to the study. For instance, you wanted to study same-sex relationship. So you have to exhaust all the existing literature and be able to examine the focus of these previous studies. And after doing that, actually your main objective or main goal is to look for the things that are not studied in the past. So from that gap, you can develop your research questions or maybe your research objectives. Secondly, it states here that one of the purposes of literature review is to discuss findings from a new study. Um, it states here that the same literature review is typically used also for discussing the findings. What do we mean by that? So the expectation is that you have extensively reviewed all the articles about the topic you are actually studying. And then after conducting your study and after doing the results and conclusion or maybe the results and discussion, you have to position the findings of your study on what the literature is saying. What do I mean by that? For instance, the findings of your study is that um, there is less the quality of marriage among OFW families is actually stronger as compared before. So if that is the findings of your study, you have to look at the literature and actually validate whether your findings is similar to previous findings or your actually findings is a novel one because you are introducing a new concept or you are concluding in a new light. And then thirdly, to use literature review to answer research questions. So, for instance, you wanted to study the farming intention of the children of farmers. So that is your research question. So you have to look for articles or or journals discussing about the farming intention of the children of farmers. So you have to show what has been founded or concluded by previous studies, and then you have to demonstrate whether your findings generate new information or idea or it just validates previous studies or previous conclusions. So there are actually different types of literature review. So I have actually identified here, I think, two types. Number one is the narrative review, and the second one is the systematic review. In the narrative review, the main objective of the researcher is to report or to summarize all the findings about a particular topic. So here, there are four ways to do that. Number one, you have general literature review, meaning to say, generally, you will look at their conclusion and then you mix them together, examine them, group together those conclusions that are similar and what are the opposing views, what are the existing discourses, what are the counter discourses, something like that. Secondly, we have theoretical literature review, meaning to say you will look for a particular topic, but your focus is how it was studied theoretically. For instance, you wanted to look at the adolescent child and father, the adolescent and the father adolescent child relationship. So if it's theoretical literature review, your focus is not on the findings but more of on the theory that was used to examine this topic. And then in methodological literature review, your focus is the methodology, whether they've used mixed methods or maybe online ethnography or qualitative study or interview. So your focus is the manner this data were gathered. And then we have historical literature review. In historical literature review, you will look at the literature on a timeline. For instance, you wanted to study literacy, so you will actually look at how literacy was the discourses of literacy, for instance, from 1950s onwards. So your presentation of data takes on a historical timeline. And then the second one, we have systematic review. It's actually kind of similar with the narrative review, but it says here that it's a critical assessment and evaluation of all the research studies that address a particular research question on a research topic. The only difference here in systematic review is that, for instance, you do a meta-analysis of quantitative studies, so you will only be looking at, for instance, you wanted to study mental health of students and you wanted to do a meta-analysis of quantitative studies on the topic, so you will only include in your review, for instance, survey results about the mental health of students, because your focus is the meta-analysis of quantitative studies. I hope you get my point. And then the other one, so we have here meta-synthesis of qualitative studies. So if you wanted to study mothering and you do this type of synthesis, and so you will only look for studies that make use of qualitative method. And then lastly, mixed methods research synthesis. So your specific target are studies that use quantitative and qualitative data in a particular study. So next, we have here the different steps and activities involved in the process of reviewing literature. So you have five steps. Number one, planning the review. So number one, you have to choose a topic or research area. So if your study is about maternal well-being, so that is your topic, and you will look for articles related to this. So you have to key in maternal well-being or well-being of mothers or mental health of mothers or life satisfaction of mothers, something like that. So why do we have to do it? Because you need to scope the search. Meaning to say, you have to limit the search because you cannot just type in mothers or just well-being. So it's a very broad area. So you have to be specific your in your searching. And then you have to specify the criteria for including and excluding literature. For instance, do you want to focus on Filipino mothers only? So you have to exclude literature that are not about Filipino mothers. And then you have to identify bibliographic sources or database. So sometimes there are reviews that they actually identified, for instance, they want to study blogging. So they will only include in the review, for instance, articles that are published in this particular journal. Or you will be identifying key terms for the search. as was mentioned before. So if you want to study about bilingualism, so that's your keyword. So bilingualism student state university, something like that, and then you write a review protocol. And then the second step, searching and selecting the relevant literature. Not all the For instance, you wanted to study about blended family. So not all the literatures on blended family will be relevant for your study. So you have to select. Actually, the first thing to do is just to download articles. Then after doing that, you can actually read the conclusion part, or maybe the introduction part, or maybe the abstract. And then you identify which among these articles are worth mentioning in your review, because some of these articles may be off tangent to your topic. And then finding and collecting the literature. So the third one is assessing and the selected literature. So you have to assess the relevance. How do we do this? Sometimes, for instance, you read one article, and then you have to write down what is actually being concluded in that article, and then you read again another article, and then you have to position that next article to the first one, so that you can see the relevance of the two. Sometimes the easiest way to do this is to read also the reference section of that paper, because for instance, the the article talks about fatherhood. So the assumption is that all the articles that are reviewed in the study are all about fatherhood. So if your topic is kind of similar to that topic, you can look at the list of references and see the titles that are maybe of significance to your study. So you just Google the title, and then the article will be given to you if it's accessible online. And then fourth one, analyzing and synthesizing the relevant content of the selected literature. So you have to extract the relevant content. So the easiest way to do it, as I was mentioning a while ago, is actually to look at the discussion part, maybe the conclusion part, the abstract, or the introduction. That's the easiest way to do it, because if you read all the article, all the content of that article, it would take you maybe 1 hour or 2 hours to digest what's the main point or main argument of the article. So you have to do some actually shortcutting, or if you have an AI application that can actually summarize for you the content of the article, you can do that. But the easiest way to do it is to read the abstract. And then the fifth one is writing the final review. So you got to have an introduction section, meaning to say you will be introducing what articles or topics are included in the review. So sometimes if your focus is the method, you can have the method section, or if you want, you can just focus on the results section, and then we have discussion and conclusion section. But sometimes results and discussion and conclusion are actually merged, and then reference section. But what is important in the literature review is actually you should summarize. For instance, you have four topics: mothering experience, relationship with children, and then you have well-being. So meaning to say, your literature review should have three parts. Okay, one for mothering practice. You have to review all the literature about mothering practices, and so on and so forth. And then after that, you should have your summary. In summary, you have to summarize what all these literatures from different themes are actually telling us. And then you have to identify the gap. And the gap could be the connection of these three topics. And then next, so this is an example. For instance, you want to study how do parents of children with autism cope over time. Oh, so this article I think is relevant. And then an example also, this is the result of this study. So it says here that the result is actually there is a striking difference between parental coping at the time of the previous research and now. So meaning to say, when this was first studied, the coping strategy of parents, for instance, 20 years ago, is different from the coping parents of just of recent studies. So it says here that it reflects also this difference. It reflects the declining degree of emotional distress experienced by the parents. So meaning to say, those parents of children with autism right now are not that emotionally distressed, and because they have noted that their children have improvements, and compared to children with autism before, their children right now are actually significantly easier to live with, even if they retained many autistic symptoms. So you can highlight that result of the study. So just focus that there is actually a difference on how mothers or parents cope with their experience. And then another one, if you can also look at the table related to their coping strategy. Like you can actually highlight, for instance, the the coping strategy with the highest frequency is family support and the use of treatment services. So you can actually convert that into a statement, and then by doing that, you can include that in your review. And then, so that's an example, okay? So my expectation is that you will be looking for articles that are relevant to your topic of choice. So if you are seven in the group, actually I am expecting that each one of you will read five articles and then do a matrix for those articles, and then you share it with your group mates, so that if you are there are seven members in the group, I am expecting 35 journal articles that are part of your review of related literature. That would be all. Thank you.